आई एम द सन ऑफ अ डिप्लोमैट। मैं झूठ नहीं बोल सकता, तो अब मैं उसके मुंह पे तो मैं ही बनाया क्या घटिया करना चाह रहा है, तो शर्म नहीं है कि मुझे देता हूँ तक, मैं ऐसे थोड़ी बोलूंगा। आई डोंट केयर अबाउट कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस। whenever I display my love for India, it ignites the other side, because they can't take that. Now we live in a different time. जी मैंने ये कर लिया, मैंने वो कर लिया, दूसरों को नहीं कहना नहीं चाहिए ये बात। So now everybody is their own mouthpiece. Everybody is sort of marketing. I'm the first in doing this. I'm the first in doing that, and no puns intended. I'm the greatest. I'm the best. I'm the flaga. मैं तुम्हें घर ना पहुंचाऊं, मैं तुम्हें घर के अंदर बिस्तर के अंदर घुसेड़ के मैं तुम्हें बिस्तर में टक्कर नहीं कर दूंगा, क्योंकि मेरे पास हर चीज का जवाब है।
मंजिल उन्हीं को मिलती है जिनके सपनों में जान होती है। मंजिल उन्हीं को मिलती है जिनके सपनों में जान होती है। पंख से कुछ नहीं होता, हौसलों से उड़ान होती है। Hello everyone, I am Soumya Vajpayee from Hindustan Times, and on World Music Day today, sitting with me right now is a celebrated musician who is not just known for his phenomenal work, but also for the fact that he doesn't mince his words when it comes to standing for the right. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Padma Shri Adnan Sami. You don't mince your words. You can call a sword a sword. It takes a lot of courage to do that. So, आपको डर नहीं लगता है?
You know, I'll tell you something. Honestly speaking, I have, quite some time ago now, I've been, when we were just talking about evolution a little while ago, evolution इंसान की फितरत में भी होती है, इंसान के कैरेक्टर में भी होती है। I realized a few years ago, literally the good old cliche that the truth will set you free, is just so apt. It's so true that, what do you have to worry about? हम पता क्या, हम जिंदगी गुजार लेते हैं डर डर के रहने में। अब बात ये कि आपको एक चीज जब अगर आपने एक ख्याल को दिमाग में रखा कि यार एक ही जिंदगी है, और जब आप पैदा होते हो तो सिर्फ एक चीज के बारे में आपको पता होता है, और वो ये कि एक दिन आपने मरना भी है, और वो जो वक्त है आपकी मौत का या जो भी आप कहना चाहो मरने का, वो तय है। आप जो मर्जी कर लो, आप उसको नहीं चेंज कर सकते। तो सबसे बड़ा जो खौफ हमारे अंदर होता है वो मौत का ही होता है ना। और इंसान जो है वो आपका कुछ नहीं बिगाड़ सकता बगैर उसके हुक्म के। तो अगर आपको खौफ आना चाहिए तो सिर्फ खुदा का खौफ आना चाहिए, और किसी का नहीं। एंड when you realize this reality कि मेरा सिर्फ और सिर्फ जो फ्यूचर है, मेरी किस्मत जो है वो ऊपर वाले ने लिखी है। इंसान जो है वो कभी कभी जरिए बनते हैं ऊपर वाले का हुक्म जो है एक्सिक्यूट करने में। लेकिन आपके अंदर जो भी सच्चाई है, आप जब सच्चाई बोलोगे और सच बोलोगे तो आपके अंदर जो खौफ है वो भी खत्म हो जाएगा, और आप बगैर टेंशन के आप रहोगे। एंड दैट इज what I realized. So what I used to do in the past prior to this, if I felt something which may be sort of slightly controversial or something which would make waves, I would rather have stayed just quiet.
Yeah.
But अच्छा, दूसरी चीज ये है कि मैं झूठ नहीं बोल सकता in the sense कि या तो मैं चुप रहूंगा
जी,
या फिर अगर मैं बोलूंगा तो मैं सच बोलूंगा, वरना मैं बोलूंगा ही नहीं। एंड और ये भी नहीं है कि मैं सच जो है वो किसी करवाहट के साथ बोलूंगा। नो, आई एम द सन ऑफ अ डिप्लोमैट। I know how to say it diplomatically also, but the point of the matter, अब कई दफा ऐसा होता है कि कोई मुझे अपनी आवाज गाना सुनाता है तो बहुत ही मतलब कि बेचारा होता है, तो अब मैं उसके मुंह पे तो मैं ही बनाया क्या घटिया करना चाह रहा है, तो शर्म नहीं है कि मैं देता हूँ, मैं ऐसे थोड़ी बोलूंगा। मैं प्यार मोहब्बत से उसको समझाऊंगा कि नहीं थोड़ी सी मेहनत ऐड कर ले, या फिर पढ़ाई पे ज्यादा से रख। अरे तू और क्या करते है लाइन पे, अच्छा इंजीनियरिंग पे ज्यादा से कर, आई विल पुट इट अक्रॉस इन अ नाइस पोलाइट एंड loving way, as opposed to turning around and just completely sort of bursting his bubble and being rude. I don't believe in that. I believe that anything, the truth can be said with love and affection without hurting somebody's feelings. But having said that, जो हकीकत है, I don't think, और अगर कुछ लोग ये भी बता हैं कि जी अगर मैं सच नहीं बोलूंगा जी, या फिर अगर मैं सच बोलूंगा तो शायद मुझे फलाने से काम बंद हो जाएगा, या ये हो जाएगा मेरे काम में, ये करूं। रिज़्क भी ऊपर वाले ने लिखा हुआ है, ये भी याद रखो, रिज़्क भी ऊपर वाले ने लिखा हुआ है। अगर आपकी किस्मत में वो काम है वो होगा, अगर आपकी किस्मत में वो काम नहीं है, आप चाहे जितना मर्जी हाथ पैर मार लो, नहीं होगा वो। तो दैट डजंट मीन दैट यू बिकम obnoxious, but just be yourself. Be yourself. Don't pretend to be something that you're not, because ultimately you won't be able to keep it up in any case. This same basic principle goes on everything in your life. Be natural. So that's why मैं जब मेरे दिल में कोई चीज आती है, जैसे मैंने कहा, या तो मैं चुप रहता हूँ जी, या फिर मैं जब बोलना होता है तो फिर मैं सच बोलूंगा, and that's simple. And I don't care about the consequences, क्योंकि मेरा एक बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग बिलीफ इस चीज का, मैंने बहुत कुछ देखा है जिंदगी में, मैंने बहुत कुछ सहा भी है, और मैंने ये देखा है कि वही चीज होगी जो आपकी किस्मत में है। कोई इंसान जो है वो आपकी किस्मत नहीं बनाता, वो ऊपर वाला बनाता है, और आपकी कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज यू डोंट नीड टू वरी अबाउट इट, बट योर हार्ट शुड बी एब्सोल्युटली क्रिस्टल क्लियर, योर कॉन्शियंस शुड बी क्लियर दैट आई डिड द राइट थिंग. Don't do things to malign anybody unnecessarily when it's not truthful. Don't try to be bold to try and serve a personal agenda of some kind. No, when you do it without malintent, then you have nothing to worry about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that also reflects in the way you approach social media. So many trolls, I mean, people go crazy.
Yeah.
And you were talking about being silent. I think पहले आप इतना इस तरह से response नहीं देते थे जैसा अब देते हैं. Like you respond as if you don't care about anything.
You know, I think this is an interesting point that you raised, क्योंकि एक, जैसे मैंने कहा ना, एक वक्त था जब मैं बिल्कुल चुप रहता था.
जी.
ठीक है. अच्छा, अब क्या है कि जमाना जो है वो भी तो बदल गया है. अभी हम वही एवोल्यूशन की बातें कर रहे थे. अच्छा, हम जब छोटे थे तो हमारे माँ बाप ने हमको सिखाया था कि लिसन, डोंट ब्लो योर ओन ट्रम्पेट, लेट अदर्स से इट, यू डोंट से इट, if etc etc etc, now we live in a different time. And when I was thinking that, oh, I'm ready to go out to the world and show them my music, and my father would say, you're not ready yet, keep working at it, keep working. I said, but the whole world is saying that I'm brilliant. Not as yet. Don't listen to what the world says. I'm telling you, you still have a long way to go. So he used to keep me grounded, and he used to make me work hard, which is great. I'm most grateful to him for this. Now, and then of course, like I said, let others say, you don't say it, etc. Then suddenly we are now living in a time when everybody is marketing themselves. कि जी मैंने ये कर लिया, मैंने वो कर लिया, मैंने ये क्या जबरदस्त मैंने उखाड़ लिया, ये कर लिया, वो कर, यार दूसरों को नहीं कहना चाहिए ये बातें. So ये चीज बदल गई. So now everybody is their own mouthpiece. Everybody is sort of marketing. I'm the first in doing this. I'm the first in doing that, and no puns intended. But the point of the matter is that I'm the greatest. I'm the best. I'm the flana. And people say these kind of things, and they're fine. They have no problems in, if people even turn around and say, "Yeah, you show off karo, karne do, tum bhi karo." People have become like that. So then the other thing is that I realized, the other thing that we were taught was keep the graceful silence. Have the upper hand, have the moral, have the higher moral ground, and so on and so forth. अच्छा, अब हमको इन चीजों के साथ बड़ा किया गया था. I remember my father turned around once, just before he died, God bless his soul. He said, बेटा, मैंने तुम्हें इस दुनिया के लिए नहीं बनाया. मुझे माफ कर दो, ये जो दुनिया है ना, ये अलग से निकल रही है. क्योंकि फिर मैंने ये देखा कि लोग मैं जो साइलेंस था, that was being misinterpreted as weakness. कि यार ये इसलिए नहीं बोल रहा क्योंकि ये बैकफुट पे है, ये इसलिए नहीं बोल रहा क्योंकि इसके पास हमने उसको स्टम्प कर दिया, और we have overwhelmed him. यार मेरे पास हर चीज के ऐसे जवाब हैं कि मैं तुम्हें घर ना पहुंचाऊं, मैं तुम्हें घर के अंदर बिस्तर के अंदर घुसेड़ के मैं तुम्हें बिस्तर में टक नहीं कर दूंगा, क्योंकि मेरे पास हर चीज का जवाब है, क्योंकि तुम्हें नहीं पता मेरी जिंदगी के बारे में, और तुम समझते हो कि तुम जो मर्जी कह सकते हो, क्योंकि यू थिंक दैट यू प्रिज्यूम्ड what the reality is because you've got a vivid imagination. So the point was that then I realized that they need to be told off. And they need to be told off in the language that they understand. There's a saying that when you tell someone, if you tell an idiot something, he will only understand it to the level of what his mental capacity is. Everything else above that will just completely go over the top, and he will not be able to understand. So therefore, rather than being very highbrow about it, you need to sometimes tell them in the language that they understand. You know, a lot of the people, why are you coming down to their level? अबे वही तो level है, उसी level पे तो ये जंग लड़ने जा रही है. So the point is that sometimes you need to sort of let them know that, look, I have an answer to what you're saying. I don't address everybody, of course, but I will say one and sort of say, pass the message. But that is the thing. So sometimes you have to do that.
And sometimes you also let your little gestures do the talking. It's like your social media posts, things you would just post on Instagram with an in-ear. So sometimes that's enough. You don't really need to say.
You see, now, for example, that's an interesting point that you have, like the in-ears. Now, whenever I display my passion, my love for India, it ignites the other side. Because they can't take that.
Of course.
It's like, say anything but don't say that, And they don't seem to understand. They don't seem to understand that when they, or anybody for that matter, talks about their love for their country or flag or whatever it is, nobody will turn around to them and say, you're trying to prove something.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whenever I say that these guys are going to us, he's trying to show he's trying to prove his loyalty, and then we'll come up with Jinnah's good old saying and so on and so forth. Muslims will spend their entire life trying to prove their thing. I mean, every countryman of every country always pledges his allegiance to his country. What's the big deal in that? Why are you trying to sort of he was saying these things to try and convince the Muslims to move to Pakistan to basically forward his own agenda of creating Pakistan. So he was using all means as a lawyer to try and win that debate, And these guys, they use that even today. They don't realize that it is better first of all, it is absolutely natural for every countryman of every part of the world to show his love and allegiance towards his country. But at least we're doing it for our country. You're doing it for your army. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, this is the only country in the world where the army's got a country in it. You know, all the other countries of the world, the country has an army. And these guys are so petrified of the army
Yeah.
that they're consistently wanting to show their allegiance towards their army. And they are scared shitless of the army. And they'll never say it.
Yeah.
They never say it because they're so scared. But that's a fact. Because that is what is going on over there. Everybody knows it. Everybody can see it. The writing is on the wall. They don't have the guts to talk about it. So, you know, the thing is that when they see this inner ear and all that, you know, it's like this. You need to understand a very simple thing. When you are born into a particular environment, whether you're born as a Muslim or a Hindu, you're born into it. You didn't make any effort to become what you are because you inherited it through your parents, whether it is religion, whether it is your social status, whether the money, whether it is the country, etc., etc. You know, you're born into it. So a lot of the times you take it for granted.
Yeah.
So what happens is, why is it those people who suddenly become from rags to riches, they really value the money that they've earned? Because, you know, they know what it was like when they didn't have money. And similarly, if a person becomes a convert to, let's say, being a Muslim, or a convert to becoming a Christian or Hindu, whatever it is, what happens is they spend a long time studying that particular philosophy of that religion. They study it, and then it is an informed, educated decision, which they value because it didn't come on a platter.
Yeah.
So the thing is, then they value it. Then that is why you find, the new converts are more namazi than the ones that were born.
Yeah.
Because they became Muslims, for example, with a complete conviction. So similarly, I lived all over the world in my life. I grew up in the West.
Yeah.
Got educated in the West. I have family all over the world. I have, my wife is German. I have, I could have become a German citizen. I could have become a British citizen. I've got family in the US. I could have become a US citizen. I could have become a Canadian citizen. Why did I choose India? I could have chosen any part of the world. Why did I choose? It was conviction. It was conviction. And that is something that they find very difficult. How can it be conviction? Because they spend their entire life with the propaganda that the army has given them. And they need to understand something. The propaganda that they have been subjected to, I too grew up with those indoctrinations.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I also was subjected to a lot of, I was told these things as well, until I came and witnessed for myself the reality. And saw, I know exactly how Pakistan is and how the society in Pakistan is, because I've experienced it. I've experienced India, and I know now the truth between the indoctrination, the propaganda, and the reality, the ground reality of both sides. And if I chose India, that should speak volumes. Because for example, then they tried this other thing. Oh, ये पैसों की होगा. मैंने तो पैसे छोड़े हैं वहाँ पे.
सही बात है.
I come from a very affluent family from Pakistan. I left crores and crores of assets and properties to. I started again, and I didn't have any issues with it because of the fact that I believed in it. I believed in the reality of what India is. And so therefore, when I show my affection, when I stand at the airport in India, at any of the airports, and I see the flag, and I just look at it and I say, you know what? My kids better remember what their father went through to get that flag.
Wow.
Because it was something that didn't come on a platter, and they better value it. That is the emotions with which I live. I mean, I truly believe that. And so therefore, they find that difficult to believe. And so therefore, and many a times, you know, when you show the mirror to someone and you start telling them that, nah, everything that you knew is wrong. And I'm a witness to it because I've seen it firsthand. It becomes very difficult for the other person to accept it, and therefore actually first sort of resists you on it. I have a lot of people today who turn around and say, you know what, you are right. We're living in a worse situation where because all rights are out. There's no democracy there.
Of course.
And this is a fact. You know, they won't admit it publicly, but there's no democracy. The most popular leader in India, in Pakistan, is right now sitting in jail, bichara. You know? And let me also tell you something. I'm going out on a limb and saying that, and I'm telling you this, that he had a very anti-India kind of a stance when he was a prime minister. It was all being, because he had so many friends in India.
Yeah.
When he became prime minister, everybody thought, oh, you know what? He's lived and spent so much of time over there. He will understand the dynamics between the two countries, and he's has such close friends. But he was unable to do that because he was being completely manipulated by the army. Because the army's agenda is very clear. No friendship over here, because you know if we do that, then हमारी दुकान बंद हो जाएगी. So you know the point is that that reality is there. So therefore, when I turn around and do that, I know that majority of the people that are doing these training, these trolls are primarily people from that whole setup, and from the army. And they sort of have their own, you know, influences or whatever, who sort of do the canvassing for them. So you know, it is there, but you know, this question should not be there.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I have every right to love. I mean, if I don't love my own country, then why did I waste my time coming here? But you know, I love everything about it because there's a history over here. Everything that you're talking about, that you think you own, basically has a history from here.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, including the Ali.
Yeah. So speaking of music, thank God for music that it actually helped you experience this country in such a way and you could make it your home. I was researching about you, not on Wikipedia, but on other mediums, and I realized that just these are just my inferences. In 2001, you started living here, right? That was 2000 you came.
Actually, I came in 99.
Yeah, so the late 90s was when your non-film music scene.
Yeah, the first album that came out in India was in 2000. 2000.
98. Lift kara de, if I'm not wrong.
No, not 98. Yeah? It was in fact, if I'm not wrong, it was in 2000.
2000. Then we'll stick to the millennium.
Yeah.
So
98 May, it was released in Pakistan.
Acha, right.
But it didn't work in Pakistan.
Didn't work then.
No.
Didn't work.
So, but it was then released for the first time in India in 2000.
So when you came in 2000, and of course you made it your home, you started living here, you started working here, you were loved. Your songs, I mean, I've grown up on those songs, and my teenage was on those songs. Kabhi to nazar milao, tera chehra, everything. And then until 2015, you were not an Indian citizen, but you were somebody who was working here.
Yes.
Late 2015, 2016 is when you got your citizenship, and it's been a decade since then also. Wow. So there are two questions in this. A, was the decision to become a citizen personal or more professional?
Personal. A lot of people, you know, separate the profession to personal. That's okay if you're a banker, with all due respect. I mean, we're to bankers and all that. I don't mean any form of disrespect. Or in most professions. Music for me has never, I mean, even though technically speaking, if you say, what is your occupation? I'll say, I'm a musician. Professionally, I'm a musician. But for me, music has never been, I never have, and I even today don't view music as a profession per se. It is my passion. and it is very much personally who I am, in the sense that, I don't see today, at this age, any difference in my attitude towards music, which it was, let's say, when I was 14 years old. At that time, I couldn't even think of it as a profession. It was just a passion, something that I would love doing in my spare time, and I never used to look at the watch, now it's time to stop, or now is the time to sort of, I never looked at the watch. Even today, I'm exactly like that. And I find it extremely amazing and extremely generous from God as a blessing, that while I end up playing music like a toy, I end up making money on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you can say that I was working, but I mean, I was actually playing. I was enjoying myself. I want to pay you for it? Yeah, sure. It's like that. So I never, it's such a blessing that, you are able to get money, your livelihood, from something that you actually inside your head don't look upon as work.
As work, yeah.
There have been times when I've been awake for 48 hours in a stretch without sleeping, just working on the piano, on my music. And, whether it was my late mother or whether it's my wife, I say, "Tu abhi tak soye nahi ho? Nahi, yaar, maza aa raha hai." Yeah, for God's sake, go and get some sleep. No, I'm just enjoying. I'm in the moment. I don't look at it like, okay. Yeah. The only time, of course, when you're in a studio, you've got shifts and all that. But when I'm working on my own, where there is no studio time or anything, I'm just on my own, then there's no such thing as time. I don't look at it like that. And so therefore, my coming back to your question about the personal element, you see, my most important, I went all over the world, like I said, and I never felt more at home with my existence and, most importantly, my music than what I did over here. My music, I suddenly came into a place where the atmosphere that I was in was just so conducive towards my passion, which was music. I mean, if I grew up in England, for example, amongst many places. I got all my education there. But it's not that music wasn't there, but it was a different kind of music. And I've played that kind of music, but my soul somewhere was very Indian. And the Indian classical music and the Indian popular music. And so this was the place where, it's like a swimmer needs a swimming pool.
Yeah.
In order to swim, he needs water. So for me, the kind of music I played, this was the place which had everything that I could ever want in order for my music to move forward. And I'm not talking about, there's a big difference. I'm not talking about it from a financial point of view.
Yeah, of course.
I'm talking about it from growing as a musician, as a creative person. When I turn around to someone who's a musician and say, look, I want to make this. And he says, I know exactly what you're talking about. I got the right instrument, the sarangi. I'll do it with the sarangi, I'll do it with the bansuri or whatever. And he will be able to immediately put my vision into, I'm surrounded by such beautiful geniuses who can add to my dream. So this is where I want to be. And so for me, this is my kid in the candy store moment. So for me, this was very personal.
Yeah.
My music is very personal.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't look upon it as a profession, because you see, kabhi-kabhi kya hota hai ki, again, I don't come from a musical family. क्या होता है कि अगर आप किसी म्यूजिकल फैमिली से ताल्लुक रखते हैं ना, तो अब जाहिर है आपके घर में यही माहौल होता है, वो कहते हैं भाई बेटा क्या, वो भी क्या कहते हैं म्यूजिशियन ही बनेगा, या अगर आप वकील हो तो अब बेटा भी वकील बनेगा, या डॉक्टर हो तो बेटी या बेटा भी डॉक्टर बनेगा. These things happen in families.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's all, many a times it becomes quite routine.
Yeah.
Because they're in that atmosphere. For me, it was not routine, because nobody in my family again, was in the entertainment business, let alone music. It was completely other professions, politics, bureaucracy, law, etc., etc. Very, very different professions. So therefore, when I decided to take this, it was completely on passion grounds. It wasn't something that I had to do because I had to carry on the family name. No. So therefore, for me, it was a passion, and it is a passion. And so therefore, the atmosphere which I wanted was something that would sort of help that passion grow. And India was there from a creative point of view, and of course, you can't deny the fact that जो प्यार मोहब्बत और इज्जत म्यूजिक को दी जाती है यहाँ पर, जो मकाम है म्यूजिक का, it's unparalleled, because it's, music over here is treated on a very spiritual level also. And because it is a spiritual thing. You see, I mean, at the end of the day, the pure form of music is very spiritual. And so therefore, that is the environment. And for me, I'm a very spiritual person. I'm very much connected to the Almighty, because when I see, people turn around, in ज़माना होता था तो miracles होते थे. यार आपको नहीं पता, आज भी miracles होते हैं. बिल्कुल. It's just that you what you're looking for is a Hollywood theatrical parting of the Red Sea. ठीक है. आजकल के ज़माने में भी इस तरह की चीजें होती हैं, लेकिन अलग-अलग तरीके से होती है. And the thing is that the miracles happen today also. So I've had so many miracles happen to me. आपने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले एक बात बड़ी अच्छी बोली. आपने कहा कि जी till 2016 you were a Pakistani citizen. Yeah, I was. Wasn't it a miracle that from 2000 to 2016, with having a public profession and having a Pakistani passport, I was able to survive without any problems? That itself is a miracle.
I was actually about that. That leads me to my next question. That even at that time when you started out and you were thriving here, there was a sentiment in the industry. There was a certain section in the industry that was not okay with it, in a sense that हमारे इंडिया में इतना टैलेंट है, हमें बाहर वालों की क्या जरूरत है. That was the same time when Ali Zafar, Atif Aslam, Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, yourself, you all were like really favorites. Like you had become our own. Of course, you are our own, but back then. So तब से लेकर 2016 में जब आप इंडियन सिटीजन बन गए, has there been any change in the way you are treated by the people from this fraternity?
मुझसे पहले 80s और 90s में या 70s में भी फॉर दैट मैटर एक दौर था. वो दौर जो था वो मेहदी हसन, फरीदा खानम, गुलाम अली खान साहब एंड नुसरत फतेह अली खान इन द 90s, वो था. ठीक है. उसके बाद then suddenly there was a lull, and then I came onto the scene in 2000. ठीक है. I came on alone at that time. After seeing that I've come in, then all these other artists also came in, and they're wonderful artists, all of them, but they came afterwards. Okay? And yes, the thing was that there was an inherent. Now I'm going to go technical a little bit. Okay. There was an inherent difference between them and myself, because I was living here. I was not coming in for a dip, doing my thing and going back. I was living here consistently for these 16 years. उनका ये था कि वो आते थे, वो अपना काम करते थे और फिर वो वापस चले जाते थे. So they were coming and going, and that's fine. I mean, to each his own. I mean, इसमें कोई बुरी बात थोड़ी है. Now, the thing was that they had their own way of looking at the way they wanted to conduct themselves, which is fine. And I had my own, vision of the way I wanted to move forward. And so the thing was that as far as this sort of small group of people who had issues, they had issues. Primarily it was those people who were basically, for lack of better word, they were frustrated themselves. They were frustrated because for whatever reasons, they were not, maybe they had seen a certain heyday in the 90s and suddenly, they had sort of begun to fade out. And so they were sort of thinking that maybe, that कभी भी क्या होता है कि इंसान जो है वो अपने आप को ब्लेम नहीं करना चाह रहा होता या अपनी किस्मत को कोसना नहीं चाह रहा, तो वो बहाने ढूंढ रहा होता है कि यार ये क्यों हो रहा है मेरे साथ, ये हो रहा होगा, इसकी वजह से हो रहा है, इसकी वजह से. And then they would just sort of take out their frustrations on a reason. Now the point of the matter is, सवाल ये उठता है कि वो मोड़ तो चलेंगे, तुम्हारा क्या हुआ फिर? like Gaffer said, तेरा क्या होगा क्या हुआ? I mean, they went, na?
Yeah.
They went. So did that do you any good?
Yeah.
No. Because at the end of the day, those people at that very time, when these guys were complaining, they were people who were working from here. They were flourishing. And they were not complaining. Because they were too busy doing their own work. And they were happy with the way life was treating them. There was only this little lot who had an issue, and they had silly reasons also behind it. There were very narrow-minded reasons behind it, because the point of the matter is that if there were people coming from there at that time to work, the fact of the matter is that you have to, not just realize that you are the biggest industry of let's say Hindi music, but you also need to have that same mentality also. Barappa, जिसे कहते हैं, like Hollywood does. Like the United States does. After all, the United States welcomed the Beatles. They were the bigger lot, na? UK itna sa hai.
Yeah.
And wo itne bade hain, and that is a much bigger market. So they welcomed the Beatles, they welcomed the Bee Gees, they welcomed Phil Collins, they welcomed Celine Dion from Canada and Bryan Adams, they welcomed Rolling Stones and the list is endless.
Yeah.
And the point was that, let's face it, nobody was doing anybody any favors. They were welcoming them from a business perspective because they were also making money out of them. So it's not as if anybody was doing anybody any favors over here.
Absolutely.
If you're calling XYZ to come and perform here, you're not doing it because you've opened up a charity.
True.
You're doing it because you want to make money out of it also. So it's not as if you're doing anybody a favor. So, that mentality needed to sort of get questioned.
Right.
And needed a check. You know what I mean? So, यहाँ पे ये industry है, let's be very clear about it. Nobody is here to do anybody favors.
Yeah.
यहाँ पे ये नेपोटिज्म की भी जो डिबेट है, ये भी क्या कहते हैं, यहाँ पे किसी के पास कोई फालतू पैसे नहीं है
जी,
कि वो क्या कहते हैं किसी के स्टार एक्सपेरिमेंट करेंगे और अपने करोड़ों रुपए जो है वो दांव पे लगा देंगे कि नहीं बंदा अच्छा है, इसकी नहीं करते जी, कोई बात नहीं, मैं लॉस में चला जाऊंगा, लेकिन इनको नहीं, ऐसा कोई नहीं होता. Everybody does it because everybody is a businessman at the end of the day. So, this argument fell flat even in the industry. This small little sect of people who were making this noise, nobody was taking them seriously because everybody was very clear about the dynamics of this relationship.
Still don't.
And
If you know what I mean.
Yeah. You see, today's justification for not, is on a completely different reasoning altogether. It has nothing to do with the profession. It is to do with nationalism. It is to do with politics. It is to do with, geopolitics and so on and so forth. It has nothing to do with anything else. And from that perspective, everybody has, it is correct because, this concept of, artists are beyond boundaries, bollocks. I'm sorry I'm using the word, but it's a fact. The fact of the matter is, no matter who you are, and if this has happened in the past also, no matter who you are, you belong somewhere. You belong somewhere, and you can't deny that. Otherwise, artists should not be issued passports only. So when you realize that there are things, and art has been used in the past all over the world for the purposes of political indoctrination, everybody has done it. And everybody has been a part of it. So let's call a spade, and let's not try to unnecessarily glorify something and make it go make it dissipate into the mist of philosophical bullshit. It is not.
Now I want to talk about the cutest element of your life, your daughter.
Oh.
She's 8, right?
Yes.
Medina.
She's just turned 8.
Yeah?
Yes.
Beautiful name, firstly. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Is she into music?
Very much.
Yeah? What does she do?
She plays the piano. She's learning how to play the piano.
Right.
And I made it a point not to teach her, at this stage at least, because first of all, I have no authority. And secondly, I think that, it requires a certain kind of discipline from a teacher who is not someone that you can tell me, well, Baba, I'm not going to play it out. I'm going to play it like this because I feel like it. And I'm like, okay, whatever you want, So right now it's important for her to learn from another teacher, which she's doing, and she's doing very well. She's very passionate about music. She's very passionate about singing. She loves to write poetry also.
Oh, wow.
And
8?
At 8. No, not just at 8. She was doing it at the age of 6,
What does she write?
She likes all kinds of things. She just suddenly start, getting into rhymes and all that, and suddenly she starts, she'll suddenly say, but I don't want to do that. They're not suddenly, I'm like, that. I thought, somebody should break off into song. She's like a running musical.
Wow.
Look, chalte chalte achana wo gaana shuru kar deti hai. And she loves to dance, and I see a lot of myself, my childhood in her. And there are things that are just uncanny, which I like, oh my God, I didn't believe that she's doing this. I used to do that when I was a kid.
She has music in her family, which she didn't.
Yes, now that is a fact.
Yeah.
She's got music in her family. And so she is definitely, growing up around an environment where there's a lot of music, And so, it's going to be interesting. You see, one thing that I am being very conscious about, and that is that, like, for example, the environment that I grew up in was quite unique because there was no musician in my family. They wouldn't, I wouldn't be suddenly told, riyaz karo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Practice karo. I mean, yes, my father used to constantly say, you're not ready yet, and but there wasn't that pressure, because and so every time I took it up, it was more a voluntary thing. I was doing it from my heart, as opposed to regimental. Do your studies, do your homework, or all that. You've got exam, you've got to study. So. And maybe because of that lack of pressure, it came from within. So I'm trying my level best also to maintain that with her. I am not wanting to put any pressure onto her that, you better practice, you're my daughter and you have to make sure that, no, I don't. In fact, many times my wife, Roya, does that. You better practice, and I keep telling her, don't tell her that. Don't say, let it come from within. It will never come from within. But it does come from within.
It came to her naturally.
Yeah, it came to her naturally. I never sort of put it in her face. I never said to her, this is what you should do. I want you to do this. She just picks it up on her own. Suddenly one day she'll come up and she'll say, I want a guitar. And I said, okay, yeah, of course. Whenever she says something, then I make sure that I provide it for her.
Yeah.
But I'm not the person who say, hey, dance me, usko do that.
Right.
I won't do that. No, I'm not going to say.
And this generation is very smart. They are ahead of their time.
Yeah.
I have a 4.5-year-old.
Wow.
I never knew there's something called dwarf planets. He educated me.
Wow.
So they also grasp a lot of things around.
Yes.
Do you ever feel vulnerable as a father, given, whatever you go through, and it's not easy?
No.
Be very honest about it. How do you keep her guarded in that sense?
First of all, I think the first thing that I was very conscious about, and I still remain conscious about, is that I wanted to send her to a school where she can just be herself, and that that where she can just there's no there's no pressure upon her that she's so and so's daughter, and and because I wanted to grow up as natural and treated as normally as possible, and yet get the best of education possible. And so I made sure that she goes to a school where she and along with all her friends are absolutely at par with each other, and that is very important. I think I try to keep her away from this whole sort of industry filmy kind of a thing. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just feel that there's a time for everything.
Absolutely.
And right now it is very important to try and minimize that whole whether we want to admit it or not, the reality is that by the grace of God, we do get a certain special kind of an attention as being celebrities or whatever.
Absolutely.
But I try to shield her as much as possible from that, because I want her to be as normal as possible, and I don't let her. I try to be as normal as when I enter the house, it's just Baba. I'm not Adnan Sami or all of that. No, I'm just Baba, and I will I'll make you a sandwich, and I'll do all the normal things that any Baba would do. And I will, and so we have this relationship where, she'll tell me, Baba, come on, we have to do this. Come on, help me with this puzzle. So, I want to make sure that it is as normal a childhood as childhood as possible. And बाकी ऊपर वाले के हाथ में, he, जैसे मैंने कहा कि आप एक किस्मत के साथ आते हो, वो किस्मत जो है वो आपको ऊपर वाला ही navigate करेगा.
सही बात. Music की अगर बात करें तो you have always been very vocal about Asha ji and the role she has played. I'm sure she has been a catalyst to a lot of decisions you've made in your life as well.
Of course.
What has she been for you?
She's been, I've said this before, and I maintain this, that she's been like a mother to me, and I always say that she's like a musical mother, and my relationship with her is very similar to what a normal relationship between a mother and son is. So, we love each other and then we fight also. We have differences also. And just like any mother and son would have, and वो भी मेरे साथ कभी-कभी गिले शिकवे कर लेती हैं, मैं भी उनके साथ गिले शिकवे करता हूँ, and कभी मैं नाराज हो जाता हूँ उनके साथ, लेकिन ये एक हक होता है एक बेटे को और एक माँ का भी हक होता है. तो कई दफा ऐसा होता है कि if I don't speak to her for a long time and we suddenly, and she'll do the tanas, she'll say, अच्छा अब फोन अब याद आया, and I'm like, अच्छा ठीक है आपने गालियाँ देनी है, अपनी जेब में कह रहे हैं, and I would say the same thing to her at times when I feel upset about something. So because there's a certain expectation that one has as mother and son. Of course, my respect for her, not just as a maternal figure, but as an artist, is infinite. Yeah. I mean, there is no one that I can think of in the world who I feel has touched the kind of brilliance and versatility that she has in her body of work, in her so many decades of contribution to music. And that will always remain. Even today, I mean, if you listen to the song that has just been released, Auna.
Yeah.
I mean, she's 91 years old. But of course, there is going to be a certain change in the texture of the voice because of the age. But she can smoke anybody, even today, out of the neighborhood, because of the chops that she has in her voice and the kind of intricate talas and the murkis that she can give today would leave many a young aspiring singer, gasping for breath because of just her phenomenal riyaz that she has. So I mean, you how many singers can belt it out at this age? That's what Asha Bhosle is. Because she can do anything.
Yes.
And Lata ji once said something very nice. God bless her soul. She said कि जो गाने मैं गा सकती हूँ वो आशा गा सकती है, लेकिन जो गाने आशा गा सकती है वो मैं भी नहीं गा सकती. Which is probably the ultimate compliment that Asha ji can receive from someone of the caliber of Bharat Ratna Lata Mangeshkar. Even though she may be her sister, but I mean they were professional entities in their own right. So there's no doubt about her phenomena as a talent and as an artist.
To wrap it up, you mentioned a very interesting point in that interview of yours, which I hold on to quite diligently. You were talking about finances and how back in Pakistan you never had to really bother a lot about money, and your work was just for your contentment.
Right.
This was a very funny thing, talking about laziness, and you were like, "मैं अपनी speed पे काम करता हूँ." Yeah. So now, when you shifted to Mumbai and when you started a life here, you left everything back there. You had to start from the scratch.
Yes.
So, point number one, were there any financial challenges that you ever faced when you started out? Because, of course, you were used to a certain kind of life. Secondly, you still work at your own pace.
Yes.
So, how do you keep up? What is आपका मैयार क्या रहता है? How do you choose the work that you want to do, and how much do you want to do? Do you succumb to any pressures?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. In fact, it's interesting that you asked me this question. I'll narrate a very true incident that happened. First of all, I came with, I think I just had $1,000 with me, which, I mean, all said and done at the end of the day is not a huge amount of money. I just came with about $1,000. But I was like, and I didn't want, I didn't want to, I could have easily asked my father for help and so on and so forth, and he would have gladly given. In fact, one very interesting incident. My father was also a very, like myself, I mean, I probably took it from him. He was quite a techie, I mean, he was very advanced. He was using the phone, the smartphone. Well, I think one of the first smartphones that came out was O2. And he had that, and he used to start using it to write, emails. And I used to laugh at him. I said, "Oh, why do you have to use the phone to write emails? I mean, use your computer and all that." So yeah, he was very tech savvy, and he was very much into it. And he used to be very active on the emails and so on and so forth. He used to send me, I mean, when I was here in the beginning, we used to send me literally 2-3 emails a week. I didn't have access to a computer, so I used to go to these cyber cafes or something, and I couldn't go every day to a cyber cafe and all that. So many a times there would be a gap, and he would suddenly turn around and say, "What is this? I keep sending you emails and you're not sending me replies, and हफ्ते में एक दफा तुम्हारा कभी जवाब आता है." मैं अगर उनको बताता कि मेरे पास ये नहीं है, मेरे पास कंप्यूटर नहीं है, he would have hit the ceiling with, "What do you mean you don't have a computer? It's like outrageous." And, it was like inconceivable for him, you know what I mean?
And what year is this?
I'm talking 2000. Yeah. I'm talking about 2000. So, I mean, for him, these were very, very normal kind of things that we should be having, I mean, what do you mean you don't have a computer? So, there were, that was a small little example. But, I'll tell you, when this whole album took off, and I, literally sort of became very, this new kid on the block, etc. What happened was, like I said, I had to start from scratch, as you rightly pointed out. But I was very clear about how I wanted to navigate myself. Money, as I said even earlier, as you rightly pointed out, was never my motivating factor. Of course, everybody needs money. I'm not saying that, I mean, artist जो है वो वाह पे नहीं जी सकता है उसको, but it was never the decisive, it wasn't it would never be the motivating factor for me to do something, no matter what. I was very clear about that then, and I'm very clear about that even today. And I'll give you the best example. Sarirama was first hosted very successfully and brilliantly by Sonu Nigam. And then after that, when he decided to bow out, then it was at some point in time there were for a brief period it was hosted by Ayan and Aman and Ayan Ali Khan, and then when this season or stint or whatever came to an end, Gajendra Singh, excuse me, very well-known producer, director of the, legendary figure. I mean, he did Antakshari and he did Saregama and all that. At that time, my videos, Lift Kara De, all of these videos were out. I was all over the place. He came to me, and he came with a wonderful proposal that I should host Saregama. And I said to myself at that point in time, that if I do this, as it is, my videos are coming left, right and center. Uski upar se, I end up doing this hosting, and this is going to be also, because there were a lot of reruns and so on and so forth, the weekend spin and so on and so forth. I said, I will there was at that point in time, it's not like social media today. Overexposure was not a good thing. And it's very easy to, there's a very fine line that you need to cross, whereby people turn around and say that, oh, he's there, and then they say, so you needed to draw that very fine line between overexposure and just enough. And I felt at that point in time that if I do this, I will overexpose myself, and I need to look upon I've always believed that you need to be a marathon runner as opposed to a sprinter. You need, and I was always clear, and I've always been clear that for me, music and this whole profession is a marathon. It is not something that I've come in for a quick dip and a quick, loot and then out. No, I never looked at it like that. And so when Gajendra came to see me, and we had this meeting, he tried he was very sweet, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him because he's an icon and he's a pioneer.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of what we see today, he was the one who started it, and so I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. And so he said to me, he said, look, I really think that this is going to be great for you, and so on and so forth. And I said, Gajendra, I don't want to do this because I feel that it's not going to be right for me, and I could be wrong, and maybe I was, I don't know, but it felt right for me. You know what he did, and he's a witness, and I'm saying this on record, and you can always ask him. He took out his checkbook.
Yeah.
He took out his checkbook and he put it in front of my table. He said, you write the amount you want, and I will sign it when you take that, and we'll do it. I said, that's very kind of you.
Oh my God.
No, thank you very much. I'm most honored, but in all humility, for the purpose of my future, thank you, but no thank you. He was shocked.
I can imagine that.
And I can say this with a clear conscience because it's the truth again.
Yeah.
And I remember I had two assistants who were sitting in this meeting and their jaws dropped. Sir, aap kya kahiye?
But then was this the time when you needed money or you were okay?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, this is why I was in the beginning of you need to remember one thing, Lift Kara De, this whole album, I didn't make any money out of it. I literally gave it almost like free. I didn't make any money out of that album. So you can't turn around. Yes, there were huge hits.
Yeah.
And because my purpose of giving this album at literally, I mean, I didn't even recover my recording cost on it.
What do you say?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the point was, my recording cost at that point was about 15 lakhs. I got about hardly 3 lakhs, and that too in installments, and some of the checks also bounced. And so it was like, I mean, I didn't make anything out of it. And so the point was, it wasn't as if I was floating in money and that I didn't need any more. I needed it. And God knows I needed it. But I said, no, this is not going to help me in my long term. And so I very politely, very humbly, I said, thank you, but no thank you. And this is a fact, it's on record, and I've got witnesses on this. And I'm sure that if tomorrow you ask Vijay, he'll gladly sort of, verify this, because it's the truth. It's what happened. And I needed it. ऐसा नहीं कि I didn't need it. And my assistants knew that I needed it. That's why they were shocked. कि आप कैसे कर सकते हैं? You know, but I didn't take it. And I was living in a studio apartment. You know, in a very small studio apartment. So, you know, it's not, I mean, I wasn't living in any kind of, and it was a rented place. I wasn't, you know, so this should be a very clear indication that money has never been the reason behind, or the motivation behind anything that I've done. Never. And may it never be. This is my biggest prayer, because the point is, I feel in music, the moment you start talking about money, God walks out of the room. Because music is spiritual. It's all about the Almighty's gift to you. So, I mean, He gave it to you free. So, you know, when you exercise it, and you are true to it, and your motivation is because of the love that you have for it, the money will follow.
Of course.
You need to have the right reason कि ये गाना मैंने इसलिए compose किया या गाया है क्योंकि I believe in it. Because you believed in it and you gave it your all, the money will follow. There have been times when I've done a song, I've never even asked यार इसको कितने पैसे हैं क्या है whatever. No. But the point of the matter is that the reason behind it is very important. I need to first like the song. And that is what has always happened. When I felt at some point that I was not enjoying doing something, whether it was composing for films or not, it's not. I like composing for films, but I would like to work with people that I want to work with, where I feel the interaction is fun.
Yeah.
But there have been occasions where I've worked in, you know, I mean, obviously never, you know, it's one thing to know somebody, it's another thing to work with somebody. Sometimes you work with people and you enjoy the whole process. Sometimes you suddenly work with people and say, yaar, kya hai ye? You know, I mean, you don't, and then, you know, somewhere you lose the heart or whatever, you know. And so therefore, I'm very, you know, I'm not difficult.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
I'm not difficult. You know, I'm like a
very clear.
I'm very clear.
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, I'm like a horse. You know, why I use that term, you know, a horse is very picky about who he allows to sit on.
Sit on the back.
Because you see, he's going to allow that person to navigate him.
Yeah.
So he's going to put his entire existence at the mercy of the rider. So the rider better know what the hell he's doing when he turns around and says to the horse, you turn left. He's going to, without asking questions, he'll turn left. But he has to first have faith in you. ये कहीं से मुझे गिरा तो नहीं देगा left में पहुंचा के. So once I am confident and you know, because you see, the creative process is about mutual respect also. When you give me an opinion, I need to respect your opinion. If you turn around to me and say that, you know, you started playing Ram Durga on the tabla, I'm not happy to.
I would be never asked for that. So thank you so much, Adnan. It's been a pleasure.
That was good.
Thank you.